You ever hear a weird noise or catch a strange smell in your house and just kind of ignore it? Yeah, we all do it. But what if I told you your house is trying to talk to you? See, its electrical system has a language all its own. Those clicks, buzzes, and flickers, they're not just random quirks, they're messages. And today, we're going to learn how to decode them. So I want you to really think about it. Is your house trying to tell you something? Because sometimes the faintest whisper, well, that can be a warning of a much, much bigger problem hiding just behind the walls. And some of these warnings are just weird. I mean, we're not just talking about obvious sparks here. A faint fish smell? Believe it or not, that could actually be the plastic insulation on your wiring overheating. Or that buzz from your breaker panel. A switch that feels warm. A breaker that trips every single time you fire up the microwave. These are all very specific signals that something is wrong. So let's dive in and look at the common signs of electrical trouble. Both the ones we tend to notice and the ones we're all a little guilty of just brushing off. It's so easy to do, right? The lights flicker for a split second when the air conditioner kicks on, or you feel like you're replacing the same light bulb for the third time this year. We just write it off as a little annoyance, part of living in an older house, or hey, maybe it's just a bad bulb. But here's the real question. What if they're not just annoyances? What if they're actually symptoms of a deeper and frankly more dangerous issue going on inside your electrical system? And this is where it gets serious. This is where we connect the dots, and we go from a simple, everyday symptom to a potentially huge risk. This is where listening to your home really, truly matters. Okay, let's take those flickering lights. This is a perfect example. That flicker could be from a loose connection somewhere in the circuit. And you know what a loose connection does? It creates electrical resistance. And resistance, well, that creates heat. We're talking enough heat to literally melt the wire's insulation and start a fire in your walls. Or how about this one? A breaker that just keeps tripping. Now, a circuit breaker is a safety device, so when it trips, it's actually doing its job. But if it's doing its job all the time, it's not just working, it's screaming for help. It's telling you that the circuit is totally overloaded. You could have an old, undersized panel that just can't keep up with our modern gadgets, and that is a major fire hazard. And speaking of older homes, we have got to talk about a very specific hidden danger: aluminum wiring. If your home was built roughly between 1965 and 1973, you need to hear this. The problem boils down to simple physics. Aluminum expands and contracts a lot more than copper wire does as it heats up and cools down. So all that expanding and contracting, day in and day out, causes the connections at your outlets and switches to slowly wiggle themselves loose. And as we just talked about, what do loose connections create? Heat. This makes aluminum wiring a leading cause of electrical fires in homes from that era. Now, to make this even more real, let's look at how where you live can totally change the game. The source material brings up Long Beach, California as a perfect example of how a coastal environment creates its own unique challenges. Just look at this breakdown. The biggest factor by far, 50%, is salt air corrosion. Living near the coast is great, but that salty, moist air is absolutely brutal on metal, and that includes all your electrical components. Now, you combine that with older infrastructure and the heavy load from running the AC, and you've got a perfect storm for electrical trouble. Yeah, that salty air just eats away at everything outside. Your light fixtures, the main meter box where all the power comes into your house, every junction box. And corroded connections are just as bad as loose ones. They create resistance, they generate heat, and they seriously increase the risk of an electrical fire. So, you've spotted a warming sign. What do you do next? Let's switch gears and look at the solution. What a professional, by-the-book process actually looks like to make sure your home is safe. And this right here is the guiding principle. This isn't about some random set of rules. It's a standardized code with one job and one job only: to protect property, and more importantly, to protect our lives from totally predictable electrical dangers. Look, the whole process should be super simple and transparent. You call and explain what's going on. A licensed pro comes out not just to patch the symptom, but to find the real cause. And this is key. They should give you a clear, written estimate before they start any work. Then they do the job right, to code, test it, and get it inspected. No guesswork, no surprises. So what should you be looking for? Here's your cheat sheet. They need to have the right license for your area. They absolutely have to be insured. They need to give you that upfront written estimate. And for big jobs, they have to pull the required permits. And trust me, that's not just paperwork. It's your guarantee that an independent inspector is going to verify the work is done safely.
Sometimes a quick fix just isn't going to cut it. A lot of older homes need some major upgrades to be both safe and functional for how we live today with all our power-hungry devices.
This chart breaks it down really nicely. A full panel upgrade? That's what you need to handle modern stuff like an EV charger or a new central AC system. Getting a new hot tub? Well, you'll need a new dedicated circuit just for that, so it doesn't overload everything else. And GFCI outlets, those are the ones with the little test and reset buttons. They are an absolute must. They're designed to instantly shut off the power if there's a problem, protecting you from a nasty shock, especially in places like kitchens and bathrooms.
And let's circle back to this one more time because it is so important. Those older, undersized panels, the 60 or 100 amp ones, are a huge liability in a modern home. They're one of the main reasons for those frequent breaker trips we talked about, and they are a serious fire hazard. Upgrading your panel isn't a luxury, it's one of the most important safety improvements you can make. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. We've gone from symptoms to hazards and all the way to solutions. So now it's time to bring it all back home for one final check-in. All right, here's the bottom line. These are the signs you must never, ever ignore. Any unusual smell, burning, plastic, that weird fishy smell, breakers that trip again and again, any buzzing or sizzling sounds coming from your walls or your panel, outlets that look discolored or feel warm, and for sure, any kind of shock, no matter how small you think it is. Think of these as your home's emergency alerts. Don't ignore them. And that brings us right back to where we started, but now you know what to look for. So take a minute, walk around your house, listen, look. What is your home's electrical system trying to tell you? Because paying attention isn't just about home maintenance. It's about keeping everyone inside safe.